So of the three things that I think team members look for in an organization, one of the main things I see, even given in the current context, would be stability. And followed by stability, it would be about also being able to have growth within an organization. And in a very dynamic world that we are in right now, I think a lot of people are also looking for exposure because they want to be extremely multi-skilled as well. So when it comes to retaining and taking care of talent, I think the most important thing is involving them in the overall business. So you want to be as transparent and make them part of the overall project that you're doing. So one thing that we do at the RAS is we regularly give all of our employees insight into the business, what we are doing right now, what we have done in the past, and where we are going forward in the future. And also we do openly discuss about all of the mistakes and sometimes the errors that we have done ourselves, because that's where we kind of, we have to have a realization internally as well. So that's what we impart onto our employees. And the other part of it is really speaking to employees and engaging with them and understanding what their objectives are. In an organization, you have employees who sometimes, if I would say, is that they come in for a certain purpose, they come in to align and they want to grow, and they have a certain drive that they are looking after. And at initial onset, maybe everything works out where they are really focused on what they are doing, but as they grow, the roles change and your task also change. So it's important to regularly check with these employees if you are going to have them in a long-term basis, to ask whether they are aligned in their objectives as well. As an organization have an objective, sometimes there might not be alignment, and then it's also important to see whether you can facilitate that their objectives within the organization objectives and reposition them as well, because these employees then will have a much more higher purpose within staying, because they are also fulfilling their needs within the organization as well. And I think apart from checking on employees and also being transparent with them as well, it's also about engaging them on a regular basis, and also imparting a lot of knowledge across to them. So that means you don't only give them what is sometimes relevant only to them or what they are in their specific field. You also make an effort to broaden their scope as well. Yeah. Discussing about the defining moment of our career, I think looking back in the last 12 months, it would be COVID and dealing with COVID be one of the top of the mind things. However, I would like to say it was in 2018 when we did the first 11/11 or Alibaba Singles Day in Sri Lanka. Now, having said that, that sale was of enormous magnitude. It's supposed to be the largest sale in the world. And when we came to Sri Lanka, we had prepared a lot, and we were ready for this one big day massive sale. But we got an unprecedented amount of orders from the market. It was because there was a massive appetite for e-commerce in the market that we had not seen prior to that. And with that, it created a massive pain in our entire supply chain, and we were finding it very difficult to get through to all of our customers. But coming out of that, the learning was that we need to be prepared even more for every possible aspect of it. So coming out of that campaign where we had a lot of issues in terms of supply chain, we went back to our existing infrastructure of supply chain and processes and rebuilt it ground up again. And we also took it into mind that we should be ready for any kind of circumstance whatsoever. And it is a very broad thing to say that, but applying and putting in different processes and also having a backup plan for your backup was very important. And from there on, it has been growth continuously, and that helped us in a way also to adapt when it comes to situations like COVID. So we could say that we were a little bit ahead in the steps because we had dealt with multiple situations. So one of the key changes that we had gone about in our supply chain would be, one is the infrastructure, and we've kind of built a supply chain infrastructure to be very mobile, because we were operating in areas that we had to sometimes close down due to isolations as such. But we as an operations team could not afford to do that, because when you are in the business of e-commerce, the orders are always coming in at all times. So it was important for us to build a setup that we can regularly move around and adapt as of the circumstances. And that was one of the key things that we saw in terms of a change in our supply chain. Another aspect that we saw in the change itself was that we need to multi-skill people a lot more. Our staff, they need do a lot more multi-skilling, because there's again a lot of uncertainty in the staffing side of operations as well. And one way we could counter that is that we prioritize on the different types of processes and things that we have in our supply chain, and put in staff in areas where we were lacking staff. We could multi-skill and train staff and put them in there as well, so that we are continuously growing and we are continuously operating at the same time. And this also gives a reassurance for the staff as well, that there's business continuity. I would say the main advice coming into people who are interested really in supply chain is that, one, I think supply chain itself is very vast, it's very exciting, and there's a lot of different things that are happening. And we are in an age where supply chain is really very critical to our day-to-day lives. It's becoming more demanding. People are requesting things for much more faster, and with that, the complexity of supply chain increases. Now, with that complexity that comes in, there's a certain bit of excitement element that comes along with complexity. And I think understanding and learning supply chain will really help you, fit in with the excitement. So for me, if I had to really say about people who are interested in learning and, jumping into supply chain as well, is that it's highly logical. And then I think one of the key changes that are happening, I think, is also that it is going to be even more and more data driven as we go along as well. And with data driven approaches as well, is that you start seeing all the moving things a lot. And if you are a person who likes to, take a deep understanding, a really deep dive into supply chain and understand all the moving pieces and all of that, this can always keep you, I would say supply chain will always keep you on your feet and you won't get bored. And that's the most interesting thing about supply chain.